Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli out here on the lake to do a shop video for you today. And in today's shop on the lake, we're talking about spawn fishing with the Berkley PowerBait Gilly. Now, you know, this Gilly is a few years old now. It's launched a few years back, and really when bass are in any phase of the spawn, pre-spawn, actually spawning, or just off the beds in the post-spawn, this bait, this bluegill, sunfish, panfish profile is a killer. And think about that for a second. Before I really start getting into this, think about why these bluegill colors and shapes and profiles are so good during the spawn. And the primary reason? Bass hate bluegill during the spawn. They hate them. They hate them because they're egg eaters, they raid the nest, and they also hate them or like them because they taste good. It's a great meal for a fish during the spawn. And you know, really this style lure, bluegill profile style lure, has become a big player for me right now. During these three phases of the spawn. I want to go ahead and go through the three primary ways that I'm going to fish the gilly during the spawn. And here's the thing, guys, I'm going to give you these three methods with three sizes of gillies, but sky's the limit. For sure, there are other ways of rigging these that work. There are probably new ways that we're not even thinking about. The main point of this bait during the spawn is it is a panfish bluegill style imitator. It's great this time of the year. Let's start with the big size. And guys, this one is for sure one of my favorites. This is the 130 size. And if you look at that 130, it really is a good imitator of what I call an adult panfish, an adult sunfish. We've got them, of course, in natural bluegill colors, standard colors, even colors that look like crappie. So some different colors. But this big one, the way that I utilize it during the spawn is as a search bait, okay? As a search bait. You heard me say it, guys. Not every fish during the spawn is locked. There are some that are coming, there are some that are going, and of course there are spawning fish. But this big size as a search tool is amazing. And so basically I'm using this one as a swim bait. My basic rigging, and I'm going to show this to you, is rigging the 130 with a 5/0 EWG style hook. This is a 5/0 Berkley Fusion hook. This is a heavy gauge EWG. The 5/0 fits it perfect. If you look at that bait, it is almost all hook, you know, so when the fish get it, there's a lot of hook bite there from that fish. And one of the things that I like to do, and I want to show you this little trick, is I add a spring keeper to the nose of the bait when I'm fishing like this to help keep that hook secure. So I want to show you that trick real quick. So there it is out of the pack, and it already has a solid nose section. And all I like to do is I get a spring keeper, and you can get these on Tackle Warehouse. It just looks like a little corkscrew, like a little wine key almost. And I'm going to get that spring keeper and literally just start screwing it into the nose of the bait, okay? And I'm gonna get that thing just all the way down till the spring, literally like the spring disappears, okay? And all that's left sort of is that little nub. Now I'm gonna use that not as something for a trailer or something like that, but I'm gonna use that for my hook. And let's see, I'll use this one here, I'll show you. I've already got the spring keeper in this one. So there's my hook. There's a 5/0 EWG Berkley Fusion hook. And when I hook this thing through the nose, I'm going to make sure it goes through that spring. So I'm using the spring as a mechanism to help keep that hook in there and not tear out of the nose, okay? So gone in the nose, I'm pulling it out, I can feel that it's in that spring, and I'll go around and just do my normal Texas rig, okay? And when I'm rigging it swim bait style like this, I like to side hook it. So I'm not going directly through the middle of the bait, but I'm actually coming through the side. Now, when you puncture that hook, always make sure that the hook is coming through the bottom because the top is hollow, okay? On these gillies, if you look, the top is hollow. Let me see if you can see that little hole right there, okay? So I want to side rig it from the bottom. So again, just a normal Texas rig, and there's a little line on this bait that could help you with the rigging. So I just pop it through, my hook pops out, and there you have it. All right, one last thing with this swim bait is for ultra shallow situations, I often fish it just like that. But if you're fishing in a little bit deeper water, let's call it 3, 4, 5 feet, you could add a little nail weight to this big 130 when you're fishing it side rigged or swim bait style. And that'll help you keep this bait balanced so that it swims anatomically correct, okay? And this is just a regular little lead nail weight. The nice thing about the lead weights is you could just cut them with your teeth, and I'll take just a little section of that nail weight, and I'll show you before I push it all the way in, and I stick it in the chin of the bait, the bottom chin of the bait. And so just a little bit, it's probably like a 32nd of an ounce. I push that nail weight in there, and that's going to help when I'm swimming this bait. It's going to help it run anatomically correct in deeper water, okay? So spawn fishing with the Gilly, I'm using the big size, the 130, as a search bait. So I'm going to catch pre-spawners, post-spawners. As I'm looking for beds, I can long cast it. And last but not least, this bait will show spawning fish that are spawning deeper. Think about that. A lot of those deeper spawning fish, you can't see with your eyes, but they see this, they come off the bed, they're attracted to it, and then they go right back down, okay? So method number 1 for spawn fishing with the Gilly is using that bigger size, that's the 130, and I'm just using it as a swim bait, basically, okay? Method number 2, guys, and this is a sleeper rigging method for the Gilly, and that is straight up Texas style. You know, I think this bait is such a swim bait looking lure that people forget about the good old Texas rig with the Gilly. But it is probably the primary method that I'm going to use during the spawn, especially when I've identified a spawning bass. Okay, guys, you know the Texas rig, I'll go over it, but you know it. And for the Texas rig, my favorite size Gilly is that middle size. So now I'm going from the 130 and I'm going down to the 110. If you look at the 110, it's like a 4-inch bait. It looks like, you know, a couple-year-old bluegill, right? Not an adult bluegill, but not an immature baby bluegill. It looks like an adult, but it's a small adult. And basic Texas rig, guys, okay? So bobber stop goes on my line first, you know, just a regular medium or large size bobber stop. A bullet weight, I'm going to use a tungsten weight, either, you know, from as light as an 1/8 all the way up to a 3/8, but a 3/16 or a 1/4 is the primary weight size that I'm going to use. And then last but not least is there's that Berkley Fusion hook again. But for the 110, I'm going to go from a 5/0 down to a 4/0, and I'm going to rig it the same way, which is side rigging it. I'm going to go Texas style, and I always want that hook coming out the bottom. And if you look at that, it's a perfect fit. It's all hook, right? Now, when we put that all together and you look at this bait, imagine this bait falling. As it falls, it's got that segmented body, so it's going to be wagging, look like it's swimming on the fall. And you ready for this, guys? When it gets near a bed and those fish are spawning, look, boom, weight down. That's how it looks on the bed. And just imagine shaking it in place. Tell me that doesn't look like a bluegill trying to eat the eggs. Tell me that doesn't look like a nest raider to those fish. And guys, they can't stand it. They cannot stand it. So I'm using this Texas rig. I'm blind casting it, fishing it, pitching, flipping, pads, wood. But when I see a bed, I'm pulling down, I'm getting this in the nest, and I'm doing a lot of shaking. I really want that bait, you know, just getting in that bed, being nose down and really pecking. I'm really going to use my rod tip, but you're going to see as we start to fish, I'm going to hit the butt of the rod to make this thing just quiver in place, okay? And a lot of times this is nice because I can keep my rod in the hook set position, jiggle that bait, looks like it's trying to eat the eggs, and when that fish eats it, I'm ready to hit it. So great bait when I'm rigging it Texas style, when I'm bed fishing, really more target oriented, right? Here's the other thing, before I get to the last method, think about how we're using these in conjunction, okay? 130 Gilly, I'm searching with it. I'm using it to cover water as I'm looking for beds. I'm also using it to identify deep spawners. and I'm gonna catch some just fishing it, right? Find one, I hit my power pole, I power pole down, and I start throwing the 110 in the bed, you know, at the target, at the stump, at the log, and I'm catching them Texas rigged like that. All right, last but not least, and this is the final method for me for using the gilly during the spawn. And guys, this, out of all the methods, honestly, I can tell you that this is probably one of the biggest underutilized methods for this time of the year, is using the small gilly. This is the 90 size, and using it on a short leader drop shot. I really got to flush this out with you, because this method has caught more big, picky spawning fish than any other method I've used in the last, call it 2-3 years, okay? And if you're watching this video and you've fished during the spawn, you know what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about the bedding fish that have been caught, the bedding fish that have been there for a week and they're funky because they've been cast at. I'm talking about the big males that are guarding the nest, that have had every lure thrown at them. They've seen a million wacky rigs and a million, you know, weightless baits and this and that. And this is really where this little 90 size comes into play. When we look at the size profile of the 90, now we're talking about an immature bluegill or immature sunfish, right? This is a sunfish that's probably, call it a year old, maybe 2 years old, depending geographically where you live in their growing cycle, but it's a small juvenile bluegill. And the interesting thing about a juvenile bluegill versus, say, an adult is they're a lot more stupid, right? When a bluegill hits that age, he's been around the block a little bit, and he knows to not get near a bass. He knows to not mess with the beds. But when they're juveniles, they're dumb, and bass know that. So bass have instinctually, I think, have a bigger appetite toward those morsel-sized bluegill, okay? All right, on the rigging, lots of different ways to rig that 90. We could rig it Texas. We could rig it swim bait style. A lot of things. Tokyo, jig head, lots of ways. But basically, guys, I'm just using what I would call a shorter leader drop shot. Anywhere from 3 or 4 inches down to about 8 or 10. This actually might even be a little long, and we'll shorten this up in a second, with your favorite drop shot hook. And on the size of the drop shot hook, a little bit bigger than you would use for, say, you know, a flatworm smallmouth fishing. So instead of, you know, a number 2 or number 1, a 1/0 or a 2/0 drop shot style hook is perfect. This is a 1/0 drop shot hook with got a little weed guard on it, 4 to 8, 10 inches of drop lead, and then a light drop shot weight. This bait, the best way to describe what it does is when I see a fish, sometimes they're on a bed, they're guarding, sometimes during the spawn, they're with their fry guarders. In either case, if I can see a bass or blind, I see a bed way off in the distance and I can't really make out what the fish is on there, I'll long cast that to it. But here's what happens, ready? Boom, the weight falls in the bed. This thing's kind of buoyant because remember, guys, all the gillies have a hole. The top half of the bait is hollow, so it's very buoyant. So the weight hits in the bed, the weight's causing a little disturbance, and right above it, look what sits. This little 90 gilly sitting anatomically correct, looking like an easy, dumb, immature panfish, and the bass can't stand it. They gotta eat it. When I'm nose hooking this bait, guys, when I'm using the 90, I'm not laying it flat like I did on some of these other rigging styles, right? It's not flat, but I'm actually getting the bait, I'm holding it like a panfish, anatomically correct position, and I'm just getting the hook and I'm going through the chin and out the nose. That way when it sits in the bed, it's just sitting perfect. And same thing, twitches, little movements of the rod, and that thing's gonna activate and really look like a small panfish hovering near the eggs or hovering near the fry, and bass can't stand that. So for sure, that 90 for me, I like to fish it on a spinning rod, but I'm using a little bit beefier spinning rod, you know, a 7.5 foot, you know, medium heavy action spinning rod, a little bit beefier because you're gonna be pulling on some big fish with that. So a little bit heavier spinning rod, and then the other two using a casting rod. So gilly, 3 sizes, 3 rigging methods. We're here during the spawn phase. A lot of them are spawning, some are pre, some are post. Let's hit the water. Let me show you these things in action, and it's really going to help you during this phase of the year when fish are spawning. They hate bluegills. All right, guys, we're starting out. This is the normal routine for me with this gilly during the spawn. And you heard me mention it before, but I like to start with this bigger gilly, and this is the 130 size. I have it rigged swim bait style. I call it side rigging, but you could use a swim bait style hook with the screw lock. You know, you could use it with a weight or without, but this is really a method for me that I can search with. So, you know, when I'm saying searching, I'm going to be casting this bait randomly as I'm looking, right? Because during the spawn, I'm doing a lot of looking with my eyes, right? I got my polarized glasses on. I'm doing a lot of searching. So I'm looking for fish, I'm looking for beds, and at the same time, I'm casting this gilly around to cover some water. So it's really, if you think about it, it's almost double duty, because, you know, I have a good chance of catching one blind fishing with this gilly, right? Have a good chance. But also, if there's a deep spawner, a spawner that I can't see, I get out in that 6, 7, 8, 10 feet of water, a lot of times they'll follow that bait, right? So, you know, so I'm randomly casting it, and the whole time I'm just looking around, right? And I'm looking for beds. If I see a bed or I see a fish, I'm going to power pole down, right? And so, you know, this is really becoming almost like a bonus bait for me. You heard me talk about how I rig it, side rigging it, make sure it's always, the top's always up, the bottom's down, and I'm using that little nail weight just to help keep it running true. But it really does give this gilly a very natural swimming motion that imitates a gill. And guys, they do not like bluegill, panfish, sunfish, any of that this time of the year. That's their enemy, right? And look at that swimming in the anatomically correct position. I don't know if you can get a look at that. It's like, just look at the best way I can describe it is fluid, a fluid swimming motion. Left, right, almost looks like a panfish that's just not worried about anything, you know? He's lost and he's unaware, you know? So, you know, I'm just honestly using this as a search bait. I've caught just as many big ones, guys, fishing this as a search bait as I have for targeting fish. And I'm talking about during the spawn, you know? So, you know, water temperature right now is in the low 60s. We have fish bedding. We have fish, believe it or not, some that are done and with their fry. And we have fish that have not bedded yet. And this is going to do a good job of targeting those fish. So covering water, you know, looking, as I'm covering water, I'm looking. Now the 130 size is definitely a bigger size. So this is a casting rod size. I'm using a 7.4 medium heavy rod. I'm using a Revo, Abu Garcia Revo, that's got a nice moderate. This is a 6/8 reel, so I don't want to overpower the speed of this bait. I just want it to be fluid, you know? So there's a real bluegill, and great indicator why they're going to eat this gilly. You know, think about it. As these bass get shallow, the bluegill are getting shallow. So it's a very natural look this time of the year, right? It's something that they're seeing. So I'm fishing this big gilly, and the whole time I'm looking, I could see a bed right there, but I don't see a fish on that bed. But I see a bluegill near that bed. Again, another good sign for me of, you know, what these fish are doing right now. And they're shallow, they're cruising. There's a bird's nest. I could throw it in there and try to catch a bird if I wanted to. That might be good. Okay, I see some light spots here. I see a turtle. Oh, on the 110, giant one! On the 130, that's what I was talking about, guys. I'm looking for this bed. We saw a bed, and I'm blind casting because we're getting ready to come back. And I caught a big one, just blind casting it. Look at that, guys. Great example of using the 130 as a search bait. I'm not making this up. Let me power pull down real quick. Guys, I spun the boat back around. We had saw one sort of loose cruising, and I wasn't sure where the bed was at, so I wanted to come back. And blind casting, just like we talked about. Listen, guys, using all 3 size gillies in different scenarios to really like get the spawn from different angles, right? That's a good one. And look at that. Look at that hook down her throat. It's a good look at that 130 gilly in just in a panfish pattern. Of course, got a little tiny chin weight in it. And that's the kind of fish that is a bonus fish when you're looking for beds during the spawn. So, yeah, dude, that was awesome. You got a picture of that real quick? All right, so great example. This is, again, this is a shop about using the gilly during the spawn. We're out on the lake, we're not in the shop. But what I love about these shops on the lake is like real life stuff going on, right? So 130, using it as a search bait, catches a lot of bonus fish, identifies the bass. Now we're gonna keep going. We're gonna go back to looking. There you go. Oh, hell yeah, that was awesome. Look at the size of that bed. Oh, I see one on it. It's about right where that boil was. All right, guys, so we found one, and pretty bright bed. We've got the 110 Texas rigged. It just looks like a male, but let's see if we can. So, you know, what I'm trying to do every cast with this gilly is I'm trying to move it a little different to see what the response is. So that one is another one that seemed like it wanted it a little faster, you know? So here he goes, it's gonna eat it. Okay, hit at it. That's what I call, when you're fishing this gilly a lot of times, one of their first responses to the bait, and they do this naturally in the environment, is they blow on it. You know, if you watch bluegills really swimming through a bed naturally, bluegill gets too close. A lot of times he'll suck in a big puff of water and it's actually using water pressure to get rid of the bluegill. So that's what happened right there. But this fish is definitely what I would call hot. So we're gonna keep casting the 110 Texas rigged at him. Here it goes. Golly. Hit it again. See if I can get in that top like that. I don't know, and I don't love this. I don't like this angle I'm at right here at all. Bad. Oh boy. It took a while, but hold on. He's floating over here. I wanted to get him. All right, that was a disaster. Took a while. That's just the male. A little buck, a little 2-pounder. Maybe not even 2 pounds, but Texas rigged. That is the 110 gilly. Let me let this fish go, and I'll tell you how we got that fish to bite. That was a 15-minute ordeal, but if you look at this is a traditional Texas rig, and you really, honestly, when guys see this gilly, they think it's got to be a swim bait. But it is a great Texas rig bait. 1/8 of an inch into the nose, like literally just a regular Texas rig, popping it out. And when I'm Texas rigging it, I just want to make sure that hook is on the bottom, because the top of that gilly has a hollow spot, okay? Weight down, and when we do that, we put it in the bed. Guys, literally, it's looking like a bluegill pecking. So a Texas rig for fish that you identify, fish that you see on beds, and also if you're going past a dock or a log or a tree, flip it like a jig. Springtime, bluegill, panfish, profile, soft plastics, you can't go wrong. It's funny, I didn't like the position, and I changed the position and caught the fish. Isn't that funny? Like, I was actually complaining. Like, I don't like this position. but it brought the bait through a different way, you know, or something. Yeah, I see her. Big, 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 big one, guys. Big, big, big. All right, so using the 130, blind casting, looking, catching some, found one, power pull down, pick up the 110 Texas rigged. Oh, sees it. Okay. Big movement on it. Okay, now to see what I did there. So the first couple casts I was shaking it, hitting that butt like we were talking about. And then I did a big movement, and dude, it was a 100% different response on the big movement. Like night and day. All right, guys, tried for a while with the 110. A few responses, but now I'm gonna go to that 90 on a drop shot and see what happens. All right. Got her! Giant one! Giant one! Giant one! There you go. Here you go, guys. There's the power of the gilly during the spawn. Listen to me, utilizing all three sizes of the gilly, the 130 as a search bait, the 110 as a Texas rig, and the 90 on a short leader drop shot, using them in conjunction with each other for the spawn. Bass hate bluegill, and that one is in the boat. Yeah! All right, guys, we're gonna unhook this one, let it go. Nice gilly bass. Let it get back to its bed and protect its bed. I hope you enjoyed this in the shop on the water, really concentrating on soft plastics that have that bluegill shape during the spawn. Use them as a search bait, use them as a blind cast bait for cover, and use them to throw in beds or fry, and you're gonna catch a lot of big bass. Remember, during the spawn, bass hate bluegill, they wanna eat them, and that's what should be on your rod. Hope you enjoyed the shop. Do me a favor, before you leave, hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, tell your friends about Mike Iaconelli Fishing on YouTube. We're here with a new content piece every single week. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna keep fishing, but bye. Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli out in the shop. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, you have to check out that one, and I hope you like them.